quickly, we will just get to know ourselves shortly and briefly. So the first person I'm going to throw that to, because he entered this room first, is Albert Hudson. Can you just give us a brief history? Like, did I say history? No, I mean introduction of yourself, uh, stating your school experiences, work experiences, and how it got you to acquiring the scholarship that you're on. Over to you, Albert.
Okay. Thank you, Lois. I wish I had the energy you have. You've been speaking with a lot of energy. Yeah. So my name is Albert Hudson. You did mention it right, and I went to Georgetown, did international relations, but then majored in global business and finance. And I was the Africa scholar for the program, following my sister here, Debbie. Before Georgetown, I was doing research for University of Ghana Business School. So I did a couple of projects on the Ghana bus rapid transport system, and then also did a number of projects with Harvard. So during that project, I realized I was kind of interested in development and having a finance background. Obviously, I went to University of Ghana, majored in banking and finance. So I decided why not combine the two together, so finance and development. So I was basically looking for something that would give me the opportunity to combine the two together. And it happened that I was in a trotro in Kanishi actually, where I met a friend who talked about Deborah winning the Africa scholarship at Georgetown University. So I went to read about it and it was interesting. So I decided to apply.
Yeah, I think people should be picking church. It's a good venture to meet a lot of people than sitting alone in taxi minding your own business. So that was a good contribution. I think over to you, Bismarck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So this Mark. You can call me Kofi. It's good to be here, and thank you so much, Lois. Thank you, Mr. Hudson, for all of this. So I'm just finishing my MBA at the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, in the States. It's basically masters in business. So I'm focusing on strategy and operational efficiency right now, and also doing a bit of organizational, I guess, organizational behavior. But before getting the MBA, I used to work for KPMG. So I worked there for about 3 years. I was an audit associate, just helping, traveling around to Takwa, to the mining areas, the engineering areas, just to do financial statement audit and all of that. So which was good. And then, why did I decide to get an MBA? The truth is that I was just chasing my wife. So it was out of love. So she had traveled to the States and I had to find a way to be in the States as well. And so I decided to come. But once I made a decision to go to get them to go to the States, then I decided to use a school. And I thought it was the right time to do it. And also because then it would help me to develop myself as a leader, because that's what the business education is about, leadership development. And then how did I find a scholarship? Well, the truth is that when I knew I wanted to go to school, I knew that it had to be 100% scholarship. I'm 99.9 crown Kenya, right?
Okay.
So I needed to have the full thing. And so I was out there looking for it, doing a lot of research, other scholarship portals, and I found the graduate fellow and then the DA-ship, which I know we would talk about in details later, but that's my story. So it's nice to be here, and welcome to everyone on the call.
Welcome to Bismarck. I think if you hadn't added that aspect of it, I would have personally added it. So it was good. So over to you, wifey, Deborah, Oppong Osuma, into brackets, Mrs. I think Ofori.
Thank you, Lois. It's funny to see that I'm the reason for two people moving here to the States, but it's also a blessing to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, so hi everyone. Yes, as you might know, my name is Deborah Oppong Suman. I am Kofi Oppong Suman's wife, and yes, I also went to Georgetown University, like Douglas, Albert Hudson. I also did a master's in international relations, but my concentration was in global business and finance. And then I also obtained a certificate in international business and finance, right? So my story, how did I get to Georgetown? I prior to Georgetown, I was working as a business development analyst with International Enterprise Singapore. I was mostly focusing on promoting investment in across West Africa region. So it was more about international business operations, and that's where my whole interest picked up. And how I ended up finding about Georgetown was after I made my decision that I wanted to pursue a master's degree, I started searching online, so many, mostly Google. I had actually not heard about Georgetown. I didn't even know there was an MSFS program. So it was through my research that I ended up finding about the program and even the scholarship. And that's how I ended up applying. And yay, I did get it. It looks like I was an inspiration to Douglas, who ended up following me. So yeah, that's just a brief snapshot about myself.
Yeah, that's brief, concise, but weighty. So, to introduce this person, I think I'll just keep my chill for the sake of people on this call. But I'll introduce Abigail Okyere. Abigail Okyere, over to you. Yeah.
So just to also keep the record, let me just say that Deborah also inspired me to go to school so that it would just round everything up. Hello, everyone. My name is Abigail Okyere. As I was introduced, I am doing an MBA program at the University of British Columbia, UBC in Canada, Vancouver. And before, I'm also on the MasterCard scholarship program. I know that a lot of people do not know that there's MasterCard for MBA as well, which is something we would probably talk about in detail. But before that, I worked in the oil and gas sector. I was an oil trader, and then partly almost to the time where I started my program, I decided to work as a business development manager with a local consultancy. And then I was almost roaming about, so I also decided to coordinate on an NGO project by the AI Commons on data analytics for health and well-being in Africa. So I was just trying to gain a little experience in everything and see where my interest lies so that it would inform what I do. For my MBA, I am looking at doing the custom track. There are various tracks you can choose from. So I'm doing a custom track where I decide what I pick and choose to make the track. And so just before maybe Lois goes into it, I got my MBA program a year before I actually joined, because when I got it, I didn't get full funding for it. And like Kofi said, I knew that it had to be 100% scholarship. So I decided to wait, apply to other schools. And funny enough, one of the schools I also applied to was the Ohio State, where through the guidance of Kofi, I actually got that as well and got 100% funding there. And then I got the MasterCard scholarship as well. I then decided to go to UBC because somehow it was the one I ended up choosing, but we can go into that detail. So
yeah, don't commit yourself. Don't commit yourself. I don't want any trouble on this platform. Okay, so I think that we'll quickly delve into the conversation of why we are here after all the introduction. So I think that there's a question I wanted to ask, but I'll ask one other question prior to that. So we want to go into the application process. Now, you need to mention the name of the scholarship. What were the documentation that you needed to gather? How was the processes involved? What was the process that was involved? Were there also timelines? Probably the start and the end, and I mean any other details that had to go into getting your document ready to hand over for the scholarship to be considered. And I think I'll go with Albert first.
All right. So I mean, to finance, and we know finance is like a lot of work. So a lot of time I tend to work hard. But then for scholarships, I wasn't really ready to kind of do any extra work to get a scholarship. So I was mainly going for scholarships where you apply for school and you're automatically considered. So that was the MSFS program, and any other scholarship that I had. I actually had about 3 or 4 MBA scholarships before I had Georgetown. And I decided to choose this one. But the whole thing is that if you apply through the program or you apply to the program, you're automatically considered as someone coming from Africa because the scholarship is for Africans. So if you are sort of like, I don't want to brag, but the top applicant coming from Africa, then you are considered for that particular scholarship and you are chosen to be the one that you have that has to get the funding. So a couple of things that has to go through the application process has to be like an essay about where you're coming from, why you want the program, and where you are going with after the program. So that has to be one of the things that you need to provide. Also, you need to provide an evidence showing that you have interest in international affairs, kind of maybe travel experience, work experience, or education experience outside your home country. And then I remember last year, I think there was this optional video that you need to provide in order to get to the program. And there is also like GREs that you need to submit, but then again, it's optional to submit. But if you submit, you would probably have an upper hand. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that we would go to Bismarck as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for that. I think most of the things that Albert spoke of is very similar to my experience. I guess the only thing I would add to that is also the timing of it. You know, I think the process in itself is not a difficult process. However, it's cumbersome. It's a lot of things that you need to do, and so you can do it if you want to apply. You have to know that you have to be willing to go all the way, right? Because it's a lot of things. And I think one thing that I believe really helps is when you apply, you have to do it as early as possible. Because, for example, when I got admitted, I was like the sixth person who had been admitted into the program. It was very early in the process, and even that, as we probably will go into it, I didn't get full funding to begin with, but because I had applied early, I could go back to the school and negotiate and ask them to increase it and stuff like that. So I think it's one very important thing that you need to do in terms of when do you send you in your application. It has to go as soon as possible, because then that gives you a higher chance of getting in and getting funding. And if there's ever a reason for you to negotiate your funding, that you have a lot of wiggle room to be able to do that. The other thing that I would say, I think Douglas mentioned the GRE thing. So for his program, the GRE was optional, but for the MBA program that I know mostly in US and in Canada, the GRE and the GMAT are required. You have to submit them. So if you're looking to come into an MBA program, you need to have the GMAT or the GRE. Then there's also Ielts, which is Ielts, right? And I know I had an issue with that, because mostly you have to take the IELTS test just to prove that you can speak, write, listen, and all of that, the English language. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would I want to do that? Because I've been speaking, reading, writing English since, basic school, but that's the name of a game, right? So you have to play it. And so I remember I asked one question to someone who had come to sell the Shivlin Scholarship for UK to us. And I said, why do I need to write an IELTS test? I've been speaking English from the beginning of my life. And her answer to me is that if you've been speaking English, then you shouldn't have a problem writing it. It should be straightforward for you then, right? So, that's basically what she said, right? But so the point is that sometimes some of these things don't make sense. Why do I have to write an IELTS test? But the truth is that that's the requirement. And so that is also required, the IELTS test and the GMAT, and applying on time. And maybe the other thing that I will add on top of that is just like Albert said, the essays that you're writing is extremely important. Don't just write anything. You have to speak to the things for which they are asking for the essay, right? So if they're asking you to write about the next 5 years, write about the next 5 years. All too often we find people copying people's essays, and can you send me a copy of your essay? You go pick everything, change the name, and you drop it. That might not do the job, right? That would not fly. You have to really talk to the questions that are being asked in the essay and what have you. And I think that, and so for me, my scholarship was two different types of scholarship. One was university fellowship. So I didn't get an external scholarship outside of the school. Both of my scholarships came from the school, but one was given to me by the Ohio State University, but that could only last for a year. So I could only have that for the first year. And then in the second year, the business school gave me another scholarship that came with me becoming a graduate associate. So I hope that clarifies that for you, but that's what I think.
Yeah, that was very clear. That was very clear. Debbie?
I thank you, Lois. Yeah, so I think Albert covered most of the requirements since he and I went to the same school. The only part that I'll add is that so for the application process, to be considered for a scholarship, you have to indicate that yes, you want to be considered. I do recall, I don't know if it was different in Albert's case, but in my case, since I came a year earlier than Albert, there was a part where they ask, do you want to be considered for a scholarship? And you have to take yes or no. So I do recall I had to take yes. And as he said, once you're an African, automatically you're considered as for the African scholarship. So that's one part I would add. One other thing I also want to say is it's important to always look for what the requirements are and prior to applying. It's very important, and make sure that you take off all the check boxes that are in there. So the essays needed, GRE is needed. For my time, we didn't need any IELTS or something. If you had been to an English teaching school, a university for like 4 years where English was the primary means of instruction, then you would not need to write any IELTS. But if that was not the case, then you had to write an IELTS or a TOEFL, one of them. But since I went to LEG, just like my colleagues here, funny enough, we were all in the same, we were all in UGBS together. That was one interesting thing. Yeah, so I didn't have to do that. I just submitted a letter from University of Ghana stating that I got it from the language department, stating that I had my schooling was made mainly done in English, and that was it. I didn't have to do anything. But now, since then, I've heard that the processes have changed. Now, some people have to submit a video as part of the requirements, so where you have to say something about yourself or why you're interested. Some it's not a requirement; it's an option. But as always, they always factor in these things in deciding on whether to admit you or whether to give you a scholarship. The other thing I'll also add is my scholarship was a merit-based scholarship. So in terms of merit-based, it's important that like your academic credentials are strong. So your GPA, your GRE, or the various test scores that you take, because since it's merit-based, they really factor those things in. It's not just about need-based, where it's more like you need to provide proof of like your need or inability to actually fund the program. But since it's a merit-based, you want to show that you're academically strong or you're well-rounded in various areas. So as Kofi mentioned, it's important that like you take each material that you're presenting very serious and make sure that your application is strong. So that is all that I will add from my end. Thanks.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Abigail Autry.
Okay, so it looks like my scholarship is the one that is applied separately from your actual application. And for MasterCard Foundation, they have partner institutions, they have partner schools. So it's not like it's with the program or it's with the university. It's an entity on its own. So you have to apply separately. But what it is there are various requirements. So I'm speaking specifically to the scholarship. In my case, I had applied, but what is normally the process is once you are starting your application, you need to send like an email to MasterCard. You can find the email on their website where it's called admissibility, eligibility, more or less. So you want to know whether you are eligible to apply after all. So you send that email and then they reply back that, okay, you are eligible to apply for this scholarship. And then you apply. But basically, to be eligible, you have to be 35 years or lower. You have to be an African, and you have to be taking a program within the University of British Columbia. So once that is confirmed to you, you then go ahead and apply for the scholarship. You would write about 5 different essays. There's an essay, these are all personal statements. So there's an essay asking you to tell your story. There's an essay asking about what you do in the community. There's an essay asking about why this is important to you, why you want to pursue the program you want to pursue. There's an essay also asking about why you need the funding, right? So it's basically listed, and as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't changed so much from the time I applied. One thing that is key in writing these personal statements is the fact that you should tell a genuine story, and it should follow through from, I mean, if I pick your story, what you told me from the story should link to why you want to do the program. It should link to what you are doing in your community, or what you want to do after your program. And so that cohesion is what I guess they will be looking out for. And to also add to it, I know that because it's an institution on its own, you would always need to be checking back on their website to be aware of what programs they would be providing scholarship for at every point in the academic season, because those change. So, for example, I know that currently they are giving scholarship for masters in data science. So you just have to be checking what is being offered at what point in time. And so I think that their website is one of the key places you can find information about it. And the last thing to add to it is timing. So like I said, there's a lot that goes into it. You need to check for your eligibility, and this needs to be done, like you need to coordinate it with applying for your program. So you need to start early. I know that it opens like in November, but for the MBA program, it opens in October. So you should have started, gotten your documents ready, so that once you are put through, you just apply. So that by the time probably your admissions is being considered, your scholarship is being considered as well. So it really works well if you start early and you're able to coordinate between the two.
Vividly explained. I think that there are some questions which I would love to take before we move to maybe our personal questions. So someone is asking that, how about those completing bachelor's degree in September this year? Can I apply as an awaiting student? So Albert, going
Yes.
round.
For that, I do not really know for Georgetown, because Georgetown, the MSFS scholarship, kind of one particular aspect of it is also like the wealth of experience you have in your career. So I think maybe having 1 or 2 years of experience after school, and then also kind of adding internships to it, could be a boost for getting the scholarship, because it's merit based, right? So you need to have that wealth of experience to be able to compete with others. That's what I know about. I don't really know much about applying as an awaiting student, because you would also have to submit your your GREs and your GPAs and all that to be able to be considered. That's what I know. Maybe Debbie can touch more on that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess I can come in as well. I'm sorry.
No, you go
So
ahead.
I think in part, I agree with what Albert is saying, because for the business program, they encourage you to have at least 2 years of experience. In fact, other schools would actually ask for 3 years. So it's your case is a lot better to make for if you have that experience. However, I also think that it will be very difficult for you not to actually have your score, your GPA, because school ends in July. So if you're coming in the fall season, most likely, which is September, right? So you would have it by that time, unless you're trying to apply for a different way. But all things being equal, you need to have your degree. You need to have it. So if it's such that maybe you're coming for fall season, which is August, September, and then you're going to graduate in August, in July, then that's fine. You would have it before you need to go to school. So that's okay. But if you don't have the GPA, like Albert is saying, then you just can't apply.
Yeah, and I think just to add to it, if you don't have the official one, you can send the unofficial one, and then later have the official transcript couriered to the school, or after you are admitted, you send it in. So once you have the unofficial one that shows all your grades, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Debbie, did you want to ask something as well? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to add on to that, so it's true, as my colleagues have said, that yes, it's important that you would have some experience, because it's very competitive. That's the truth in applying for MBA programs. But notwithstanding, there have been cases where people have moved right from bachelor's degree to master's degree without having any sort of work experience of that sort. So in that case, you really need to understand where your shortfall is, knowing that you wouldn't be able to present that you have 4 years work experience, 2 years work experience, 5 years work experience, because those are the kind of people that you're competing with. In that case, you need to ask yourself, what can you put in your application to make your application strong and still compete with the others? Because in my batch, we had about 2 or 3 people who came straight from undergrad to our program. So that means that yes, it's possible. So you can do it. The only thing is I'm confused about how the timing is. If you are graduating in September, I'm just thinking of 2 options here. One, you can apply and indicate that you are going to complete your graduation in September, but I'm not sure how. I'm sure after, just like Abigail said, once you graduate, then you can submit your like what your current GPA is. Sometimes they ask what's your expected GPA level or something like that, so you can put it in. But that is if you are going to apply for the incoming cohort at this time. And around this time, which we are in March now, I'm sure most of application rounds have closed or are closing. I'm not sure, but if you are thinking of applying for next year, then that's fine. You are good to go, because most of the applications rounds would start opening sometime in September, and by September you'll be graduating, so you're good to go on that. So you just need to make sure that you do your research, look at what the application, the requirements are, make sure that you are fulfilling them and putting in a good GPA, a good GRE score, a good or GMAT score, your essay is on point, and whatever you can do to boost up your application, knowing that your shortfall here lies in your work experience. And like most admission officers will say, they are not just looking at one area. Okay, so if they look at things on a wholesome basis, they're going to assess you wholly. So don't think that if you don't have the work experience, then that means that you will not make the cut. There are people who didn't have the work experience but made the cut. There are people who didn't have good GRE scores or good GPA scores but still made the cut. So just make sure that you're presenting yourself as a strong candidate, and you should be fine.
All right. Thank you, Debbie, for that. Definitely, being competitive is one key thing that you need to consider. I just wanted to add one more requirement to the MSFS scholarship that we talked about. One critical requirement is that you would have to have a coursework in economics, particularly macroeconomics. So if you do not have that, you can do philosophy and not do economics. They will give you that grace period for you to take even an online course in economics that you can add to your application so that you get into the program.
Yeah. Thank you. There are a lot of questions that are coming in. I think that if you're supposed to go through the questions one after the other, or we might not go through the exception, but we are taking every question and we are answering every question. One of the questions that came as a result of the conversation was that, please, is it possible to know your GRE score and what is the right score to help to get the scholarship, especially for Georgetown University? Debbie and Albert, and I think the rest can add on after.
So like I did mention, the GRE now they are making it something like it's optional, but then if you do have it, it's kind of an advantage on your part. And like most of the schools, Georgetown doesn't have like a minimum. It depends on the number of GRE scores that are coming in and how high they are, then they decide the cut. But then again, they look at the entire application, like Deborah said. But I don't know if they wanted to know my score or they wanted to know that there was.
They want you to come out very honest. Maybe they know you fell behind 300, but you still got the win. Some form of them to know that they are also capable.
Okay, so for me, I was, like I said, I was looking at other MBA programs, right? And some of the MBA programs would have like an average that you need to cross, right? Or maybe like you need to hit. So for me, my GRE score, wow, in total, my GRE score was 307. And I think for the quant side, because I was looking at quant programs, I had 161 on the quant out of 170.
Debbie?
Yes, that's good, Douglas. Yeah, and just as Douglas mentioned, for our program, for the MSFS program at Georgetown, we really didn't have a minimum. But what they'll tell you is to look at the average scores of their predecessors and where the average has been. And when you go and look there, I mean, it was around, I can't remember, but it was around 320, 310 or something like that. That's the average. So that means that, okay, that's what you might want to match up. And like I also mentioned early on, the MSFS scholarship, Africa scholarship, is a merit-based scholarship. And when we talk about merit-based, that means that they're looking more on your academic credentials, how good you are, how strong you are, but not just that, they factor in, they factor you on a wholesome basis, but that plays a key role, So you would want to have the goal of putting in your best, making sure you have a good score. But that doesn't mean that if you don't have a good score, you're not going to get it, right? So, I mean, I for instance, I didn't make the cut. My goal was to have at least 320, but I didn't even hit 300. I had 298 as my GRE score. So that should encourage you. I didn't hit even 300 at all. I didn't even meet the average mark at all, but I did get the MSFS scholarship. And I mean, just for you to know, I was also a first class student in Legon. I got 3.7 GPA level. Maybe that might have helped, like, even though I didn't do well in the GRE score, my GPA was pretty high. But overall, whatever the case might be, I would say work hard towards getting a good score, because you do not know. On the MBA side, is more competitive. I'm sure Kofi and Abigail might be able to speak to it. But whichever it is, just make sure that you're trying your best to get a good score. But if you don't have a good score, that should not stop you from still applying. I still applied with my 298 and I did get the MSFS Africa Scholarship. And mind you, it's just for one person and I was chosen, so.
I was going to add that, like, no matter how you beat that down, I was going to even add that after the conversation. So thank you for hammering on that. Kofi and Abby, you think you want to touch on that as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the GRE, GMAT, and let me just clarify this. So sometimes people say that for MBA, you need a GMAT. That is not entirely true. It depends on the school. If the school says that you need a GMAT, then you have to get a GMAT. But in most cases, a school that takes a GMAT would also take a GRE. So just because before I even took any of the tests, I started to study GMAT. Then I was like, okay, I'm not quite sure. Then I went back to GRE and I was like, oh, okay, a GRE seems a bit easier for me. So I went to take the GRE and then there you have it. But yeah, so in terms of the score, it's pretty high when it comes to the business schools. And so there are some schools, for example, so Stanford has some scholarship. Stanford has a scholarship for Africans, had a scholarship for another scholarship called the Knight Hennessy Scholarship. I applied for that, but my score wouldn't even get me admission, right? So there are schools like that have high, like the very competitive one, like the Ivy League, the Cornells, the Stanford, the Whartons, the Harvard, and all of that. Then there are what I would call second tier schools, like my school, like the Ohio State University. They also have a cut, but they don't. It's not a hard stop on that. What they will say is what Debbie mentioned. You go to their website and you see the average of what their previous, like the previous student candidates came with, and then you can find an idea. So mostly anywhere above 300 is good. Sometimes 299, 298 is good. But if you get a good score above, 310, then you should be in a very good position, especially as an African, because look, that this GRE thing must have an thing. So anyway, but to really come clean on that, I had to write it 2 times. That's why I'm saying that I think one of the most important things is to apply early. When I first applied, I had 304 as my GRE score. Then they gave me like 30% scholarship. Like, where am I going to get the money from? That is not possible. So I shot them an email and I said, look, I'm not going to be able to come to school. You have to give me 100%. What can I do? Right? What can I do? So I said, I also recommended, do I have to rewrite the GRE? Because I realized that my score was not what I thought it should be. Then they said, okay, if you want to rewrite, go ahead. Then I went to rewrite Masa and Kobebia. So it went up a little bit, right? But it only came to 306 or 309. I can't remember now. Is that 306 or 309? And I applied with it anyway, right? But then I ended up getting it. And I don't think GRE, the additional score, was really a factor, because even before I submitted the new score, they had actually given me the scholarship, right? They had given me a scholarship, right? Based on other things that they told me, that they liked the idea that I was persistent and I kept on offering it. What else to make my case better and all of that. But yeah, for the business school, it's a bit of a very high requirement. And if you can get a good score, then your chances of getting into a good school and potentially a scholarship is high.
That's some huge persistency there. Like, we'll talk. Abby, over to you.
So with University of British Columbia, they have cuts like points. They have so GMAT, they have 550 for GMAT with at least the 50th percentile in the quantitative and verbal sessions. Or if you are writing GRE, you could be looking at 155 each on verbal and quantitative. But they have also stated that for a competitive edge, you should be looking at 650 GMAT or 320 plus GRE score on a combined verbal and quantitative side. But that is not to say that they don't also look at all the other factors. I mean, I can say that even with COVID now, they gave people conditional admission when they were now going to write their GRE. So they can give you, if you apply early, you could even make a case where you apply with all the other things they are looking for, and then you write your GRE. So it's based on, I know that they have sessions, you can even go for a check-in and speak with someone. It's based on how you are able to, present yourself and present your case. In my case, I think I had 155 for the verbal and 156 for the quant, which is what was like the minimum they were looking for. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, we are having a conversation on fully funded MBA scholarships. So do share this platform to benefit other people, and drop in your comments in the chat box session. I can see a couple of questions. We'll take them right like one after the other. So don't be bothered. So I think I will go straight based on all the GRE and all the experience, academic experience you're talking about. Do you think that there are certain experiences one should build to be able to get like the scholarship of their respective? I mean, give you a competitive edge over others. What do you think that, Albert?
So basically, like what I think gave me the competitive edge.
Yeah.
Basically.
Any experience do you think academically, or maybe your working experience gave you a headway, or there was something you did in project management or something that you had to touch on in a particular essay that you think that, no, this one is a banger?
So I would say that again, it's based on the overall kind of presentation that you make, right? But then sometimes you come into the program and you have like conversations with those who went through like your admissions and all that, and you get to know that maybe this was the particular area that they were very much interested in. And I think what they were interested in more for me was kind of the research experience. So it was basically based on my 2 years experience in Ghana after school, right? The things that I did, I remember we went to like Togo just for like 5 days to do some kind of evangelical work and then also like some philanthropy work, right? But then the story was for me that just crossing the border between Ghana and then Togo, right? You receive a phone call and you have to pay for receiving a phone call, right? And to me, that was kind of a problem for me that we are just neighbors. We travel even with voters ID card just to cross the border, but then you have to pay more to even receive a phone call. And I thought that was a problem in Africa that was supposed to be solved, or that is supposed to be solved if we are, even with this whole Africa trade agreement, then if you're going to cross the border and pay more to do business there, then why not do it in your home country, right? So like I just felt like it was a boundary, or it was kind of something that was dragging Africa behind that needed to be solved. And kind of the program was going to give me that tool to be able to kind of have a voice in that area. And I think that was what caught the eye, that this is someone that we could bring in to kind of equip him or with the tools that he needs. Yeah.
Debbie?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say that I've had the privilege of having to assess things from two sides. One being an applicant and also being part of the admissions team. So while I was at Georgetown, I sort of worked also with the admissions department. And so I got the opportunity to see how applications came through and how it was reviewed and what the selection process and all of it, like what happened. Yeah, so from the outside perspective, I would say that what gives you the competitive edge is what Kofi mentioned early on, where you have to start the process early. So go out there, do your research as early as possible, look at what the program requirements are. Make sure that you are fulfilling each and every one of them. You're ticking off each box, right? Make sure that that's what's happening. Make sure that your essay is as good as possible. Giving them that moving story of why you want this program and how this program is going to help you, just as Albert had mentioned as well. From the inside perspective, I realized that yes, they really do pay attention to the essays that we write. So yeah, the GRE score, the GPA, everything. Like first of all, one of the first steps to take is to check: do you meet every requirement that they've asked for? Have you submitted all the documents just they've asked for before they start reviewing the documents, right? So when they start reviewing the documents, okay, you've done well, GRE, GPA, all the others. Then they start looking at them. They start looking at the essays that you've written, right? And one thing you should also know is that it's not just one person that is going to review your application. There are about 5 people that are going to review your application, and everyone's answer. So they're just going to say yes in the end or no in the end. Or don't accept, yes, accept. So at the end, if there's a conflicting say maybe everyone is 3-3 equal yeses or no, there's always one more person who is going to make the final decision based on what is there. So most of the time you always see lots of comments in the essays, whatever the person is saying, compelling story doesn't meet. So, and one way they are able to tell whether you really need this program or not is what you've written in your essay, right? Because some people, they're able to tell that they want, for instance, my program, MSFS program, is not it's a professional program, it's not a research program at all. So people end up writing, I'm looking to do research, I'm looking to do this, and then they know right away, this one is definitely off, right? So you want to make sure that you have a compelling story, a story that really speaks to the people, a story that tells them exactly why you need this program, where you're coming from, why you're here, where do you think this program is going to send you to. Once you have a compelling story, then they can start looking at other reasons, like the other factors, because most of the time, those other factors come in when they are actually thinking of giving a scholarship. Should we give this person a scholarship or not? And then they start looking at those things, okay, yes or no. So I would say just combining the two, make sure you do your research early, make sure that you are submitting a very strong application, ticking off all the check boxes, all their requirements that they're asking, you meet every single one of them. And don't just do it. Don't just say that this is what they're asking for, so let me submit, and make sure that you're submitting something that is very compelling and something that will move them, and then you should be good to go.
Yeah. Albert, you wanted to ask something, Albert?
Okay. I can jump in there.
Yeah, Abby, you can. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say two things: your essay, and then hopefully your interview, because those are the two main points you interact with your admissions person, right? And they are humans. They are going to be reviewing it. You don't have to tell me I am passionate. I should be able to see that you are passionate, right? From your essay, from my interview with you. For example, so with UBC MBA, you record a video saying why you are doing the program. I should watch your video and it should stand out to me that, no, this is someone I would want to bring onto the program, right? And apart from that, with the MasterCard Foundation Scholarship, one thing that I cannot overemphasize is your involvement in community. MasterCard Foundation wants to build Africa. They want people who want to go back and give back to their community, or are doing something to, touch a life or change the community. And it doesn't have to be something so big. I think when we talk about community involvement, people think that maybe doing something or going to a village to build a school. No. I came here and the other MasterCard Foundation scholars I'm interacting with, it's amazing. Like, everybody did something uniquely different, right? Someone was just teaching kids. Someone was maybe involved in mentorship programs. Someone helped build a toilet facility in a village. It's different. So it's about what unique thing are you doing and how passionate you are about it. Because after you make it through the first stage, one thing you'll be doing is a video. You'll be recording a video, and they should be able to tell that you are passionate about what you are doing, and it's something that you look forward to doing even after your MBA program. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, when you get the opportunity to go into the interview, show them that passion still. So I remember, so one thing I remember from my interviews is the fact that I enjoyed them so much, right? So I got to interact with the people, and I made sure that I brought my personality to the table. And that is something that will really count for your scholarship. I remember for my Ohio State, I really enjoyed chatting with my admissions person so much. And from the feedback I got, it really counted in they giving me scholarship. So I would say the two things, because they are humans and they are going to determine whether you should be in it or not. So you should be able to leave a mark. They should remember you for something. And that's the only way you get admissions or scholarship.
Kofi?
Oh, I mean, I actually think they've said everything. I didn't know if I had to add up to it, but just to wrap it up, I think that the community involvement thing is really important, because one of the ways that they are able, because what they're also looking for is return on investment, right? That's what the schools are looking for. So to them, they are also making an investment with you, because even though it might be free for you, remember, someone else is paying for it. And so that person who is paying for, like, for example, if MasterCard is paying for your fees, then MasterCard is trying to find out, oh, all of this money that I'm giving to this individual, what is going to be the return on that investment for me? And that return on that investment is about how you're going to behave in the future. And the way that you're able to measure your potential behavior in the future is what you've done in the past, right? So if you have indicated that even without having, scholarship, or without having that big, support, you are able to do something in your community, then they can almost certainly predict that once we push you harder, you will come back and even do more. right? And so that thing that Abigail spoke of is really extremely important, and it has to go in your essay. Don't just, please, I'm begging you, don't just write the essay. Take your time and pour out your heart, because that's one of the first most contact that you get with the admission committee. Don't sometimes we think it's just the GPAs, it's just the GREs. They are good requirement, but I'm telling you, they are looking at exactly what you're writing. So be mindful of that. That how would you convince the one giving you all the money, like $150,000 maybe, to come to school for 2 years for free or even more? Why should they give you that? And you want to convince them that you will be able to meet, I guess, the target that they are hoping that they would. And they are only able to predict your future behavior based on the past. And so let all those things go into the essay. If maybe you are doing something in your church, if maybe you are doing something small in your community, you cannot, most likely, if you're in Ghana, most likely you'll be doing something to empower somebody in Ghana. You want to write that and talk about how big you want to make it be when you get a chance. And that must be the truth. Like Abigail was saying, it has to be genuine, because you look, you cannot just, you can't just make it up, because it will show through, because they're collecting so much information from you, your academics, your essays, all the, and you're writing 4, 5, 3 different types of essays. I'm telling you, if it's not the truth, there will be inconsistencies in it. And there are people who have been trained to identify that. Yeah. So I want you that, like, that's what I think. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But you covered everything.
Yeah, I think these people have been reading essays for over, what do we call, like 20 years. So they can see, if you just write, I am poor, I am poor. Please, we know you are poor. Bring something else on the table. Someone even said something like, we were just reading, and let's say the person said, I could speak English, but the grammatical errors were too much. So there are inconsistencies there. So you cannot speak English. And someone also marketing who a cupboard boy said, I was able to arrange the books based on gender, based on people who were late. So the teacher could go in and pick based on gender. You could market something very little to sound huge. And that goes way beyond just saying I'm a cupboard boy. Right. So I mean, these passion centered essays, you can see it clear cut, hands down. Albert, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so I think this is like a very good segue into like what I actually wanted to talk about with timing, right? So we do, and we've actually talked about this, that you should start early, right? But that doesn't mean that you should finish too quick, right? So you start early, but then you have to kind of present a careful application. That's what I wanted to put it in. So for me, I started late and I actually submitted my application after the deadline. And yeah, I have to say, I submitted my application 2 days after the deadline, and I was still given the scholarship.
Charlie, we are
So
good. We are good. We are good.
so I guess the point is, yeah, you do have deadlines, and some schools are like very strict on that, right? Where they have like dates where if you don't submit your application, you will not be considered for scholarship, right? I'm not saying that go beyond the deadline, but then again, make sure that you spend time on your application. You make sure that you've dotted every I and crossed every T to make sure that, because I have reviewed some applications before. I was working with the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And sometimes just by looking at the application, they wouldn't even read anything. Just the first line, they will put it somewhere, right? So like spend time on your application, but just make sure that you don't become like me, you don't miss the deadline. And then also, I guess I would say that I have spoken with a lot of people who have like very strong story to tell, but how to present it. I remember I had to read one person's essay that he was submitting to Georgetown, and I had to sort of tell him to go back, rewrite everything, and bring it, and he never came back. So I think like the whole idea of passion also comes from you having like a time to even think about what you want to say and how careful you want to present it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for the sake of time, we are running way beyond time. But I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and there are still a lot of questions. But I think we want to touch on. Do you have any idea of any international scholarships in your university, or your friends who are also on some different kinds of scholarships you can point out, and what are the future prospects for an individual if they have to, take an MBA? What should they? I think all that even informs your essay writing as well. So I think Albert just finished talk. I'll go with Kofi. Yeah.
Yeah. Look. Anyways, so but the way, I know some other scholarships, so I know. Look, like Charlie, we have struggled. So I had to. I applied to different places. I applied to all kinds of scholarship. MasterCard. I tried it a year before. I tried is it Chevelin, whatever, in the UK. That scholarship. So there's MasterCard, there's Chevelin, then there's Knight Hennessy scholarship from Stanford, and mostly the individual schools would have scholarship for African. Most of the schools, the business schools, have scholarship for Africans, and so you can just go in there and then you look out for it. In terms of prospect, I tell you, I think it's endless if you tell me, because looking at a place like, I don't know much about the UK, so my knowledge is going to be limited to US and Canada mostly. They really place a lot of value and premium in having an MBA business education. And so, for example, when it's very difficult, it doesn't matter. Even when you have, so I'm an accountant, right? If I have ACCA from Ghana, but when I come to US, ACCA doesn't do anything for me here. It's not valued at all. You need to have the US CPA. So what I'm trying to say is that you might have all sort of education from Ghana, PhD perhaps, but mostly they like it when you have their education, right? And so the prospect becomes a lot higher for you when you have the US or the Canadian education and you want to be able to work in Canada, or if you have goals of staying in Canada. And then specifically when it's the MBA program, that also puts another, I guess, another slice of the premium on it. Because mostly when I apply for jobs, right, for internship or for full-time jobs, they will ask you, do you have an MBA? They ask you that, right? And you want to be able to answer yes, because then the whole idea of the MBA, the research has shown also that it prepares somebody for business leadership. And then, to a certain extent, they have that preference. So the prospects are huge. And especially when you have the education for the country where you want to reside in. And then once you get that, then they also prefer the MBA, I've come to realize, for business education, because that's what the employers look for.
Yeah. Anyone to add on to that?
Yeah, since I am also doing an MBA, I can add on to that. So I think Kofi said it all. The MBA is, we all know that MBA is one of the most expensive graduate programs you can have. And that's because they believe in the value they are given, right? Afterwards, I find that, for example, I'll talk about the University of British Columbia. I looked through the profiles of people who have come, and these are like people who were top notches in whichever countries they are coming from. But the MBA also presents the opportunity for you to pivot into another career or another, line you want to go. So for example, you are doing something in accounting, but you want to move into strategy. The best way to pivot is through an MBA, because not only are you learning from it, you are also building a network with people who are coming from that particular background. And so it makes it easy for you to move into that new field. Another thing, and this is maybe particularly Canada, I know that most people would also want the opportunity to experience work experience in that particular country. And I know that with an MBA, you qualify for postgraduate work permit, so that you would be able to work in an industry of choice in Canada for a minimum or a maximum of 2 years or so to gain experience there. And so even when you go back to your home country, at least you've learned the culture of working within that international environment. And it really adds a lot in terms of perspective and in terms of work ethic when you even go back home and work. So yeah, it's really important in doing an MBA.
Yeah. Kofi, carry on.
Yeah, Abigail mentioned something that I wanted also to at least bring to light. So when it comes to the MBA programs, so US also has that part where after completing your education, you get to stay for a while and work. Normally, it's a year. It's a process that they refer to as the OPT. But then recently, the MBA programs are having an add-on to that. So they have the STEM, which is like, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So you can, when you go into an MBA program, or even when you're applying, sometimes it's good for you to check, is the program STEM designated? The reason I say that is because normally for an MBA program, you get 1 year of OPT. But if you have an MBA program that is STEM designated, you have 3 years to work. So you will be able to get a longer time to be able to stay in the country and work. That is, if that's what you want to do. So it's a good way to also look for the programs where to apply for. In my school, the Ohio State University, we didn't have STEM until about maybe the beginning of the year, right? Which is good. So for me, once I graduate, I can legally stay and work in the US for 3 years just because my program is STEM designated. But then, until then, those who completed my school last year, they can't do that. They have to only be there for a year, right? Apart from that, I mean, without that, then you need to find an organization that will sponsor your visa so that you can continue to stay there. But then with the OPT, if you have STEM designation, you can still be using your student visa and be working for 3 years after school. So
Okay. Yeah, Albert, you wanted to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't fortunate like Kofi. I had to leave my program until it had a STEM designation. So yeah, they have like a new concentration in IT where after that you can also stay for 3 years. I don't have that opportunity, but I wanted to touch on the other scholarship. I know most people actually when they think of schools in New York, in US. Sorry, I use New York. I've been
A bit biased, isn't it?
kind of. So when some people usually think about like the Ivy Leagues first, right? So one thing I actually came across was a scholarship for people from developing countries, which is fully funded at Wharton. So if you want to do like an MBA in an Ivy League, you might want to consider that. So the MSFS program also gives you like the opportunity to pick courses in different areas. So I had the opportunity to spend like a semester in the MBA program where I got the chance to choose like most of the finance courses. And I've come to realize that after school, although I did international relations with concentration in global business and finance, I'm basically doing sort of hardcore finance, right? And most of the things that I am working on are things that I mostly learned from the MBA program that I did in the semester. So I think if you sort of want to have like more like hard skills, then you would want to consider like the MBA program as well. I mean, you might be working on certain things in your work, but like they say, not everything that you learn is from the classroom, but then again, not everything you learn on the job can also be found in the classroom. So you have to just combine the two to give you that competitive edge when you move outside. Because I found myself talking a lot more about the things that I learned in the MBA than the work that I did before even coming to Georgetown um, in my job interviews and all that. So I believe it gives you that kind of knowledge, and also the practical work that you do in there sort of also gives you the skills to be able to talk about when you are in interviews.
Yeah. I think that time is well overdue, but we'll take the questions. However, before we take the questions, I just wanted you to be able to explain, because usually I see some things like full tuition, I see something full scholarship. I want you to be able to outline vividly your scholarship. Is it a full tuition where you need to buttress it with other scholarship, or it's a full scholarship? And if it's a full scholarship, what does it come with? I'll go with Kofi first.
So I have, like I mentioned, I have 2 types of scholarship. So I have what they call the graduate fellow for the Ohio State University. This is full scholarship, not just full tuition. So I don't have to pay school fees. And then at the end of every month, they also give me a stipend. So, but that scholarship is only for your first year. And the MBA program in Ohio State and mostly in US is 2 years. So that is only for the first year. So if you don't get any other scholarship, then you need to find a way of paying the second year. However, fortunately for me, I got another scholarship for my second year. It's also full scholarship, but there's a catch to that. I'm not paying fees. However, so in the first scholarship, the graduate fellowship, the money that I was getting as stipend was coming to me for free. I wasn't working for it. I wasn't doing any job for it. I just had to be there, go to school, get the money, and enjoy. But in the second one, I'm not paying fees. However, I need to work for 20 hours a week to be able to get a stipend. So the fees is already covered, but I need to have some money, an allowance that I would use in spending and in taking care of my expenditure, right? And that is what I needed to work for 20 hours. Now, normally in the US, when you have your student visa, normally or generally, you if you can work for 20 hours, but then it has to be within the school, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie and Albert. It has to be within the school, and then it has to be related to your course. So the work that I'm doing right now, I'm working with two professors as a TA. So I'm a TA for one professor for strategy, and I'm a TA for one professor for global business environment. And I do 10 hours each a week. And that together is giving me that 20 hours. And then I'm able to get a stipend out of it. So I don't have to pay for anything. I get money, all right. But in the second year, I have to actually work to get the money.
Yeah. Abigail, I think that just to wrap up as well, you can add maybe your final words, anything you want to give out to somebody who is also applying, then we'll take the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so with the MasterCard, it's fully funded. So tuition, housing, stipend, everything, flights. Yeah, you just have to, in fact, baggage. You just have to be ready to move, right? So it covers everything. And the good thing about that is you don't even have to be the one looking for the where you would stay. MasterCard already arranges that. I remember there was a Ghanaian here. He said, "Master, Omobesha Osakora, they would you are their baby, right? So they take care of you in every way. They would give you allowances. So typically the UBC MBA program is for 16 months. And if you decide to work, you are working like just for yourself, maybe 20 hours, but you don't need to. I don't work. And yeah, that's it. And I wanted to say something. Maybe someone will talk, and then if I remember, but yeah, I remember now. So when I came, I realized that a lot of Ghanaians don't seem to apply for this scholarship, right? So MasterCard took 20 people, last 21 people, and we are two Ghanaians, 18 Nigerians, and I think one from Botswana. Yeah. So typically, I find that a lot of Nigerians and other places, they take the risk, they put it in, they share the information across, right? But with Ghanaians, I find that there's information gap. We don't apply, or we don't do the right things to apply. But this is why this program is here, so that we bridge that gap, so that we get a lot of Ghanaians to also get into the program, to also enjoy some of these benefits, right? So if you hear about it, just let other people know. Invite people to such programs. And if you have questions, like, feel free to ask. I find that there are a lot of opportunities. It's just the information. And this is one of the ways you can get that information. So it's an invaluable chance. My hope is that a lot of people would apply into the program, at least that moving forward, we would have 10 Ghanaians and maybe 10 other people into the program.
Yeah.
So let's just keep applying, and please do your best to put in a quality application as well.
Yeah. Albert, I think Kofi, we'll come to you on the final words with the questions. But Albert, yeah.
Yeah, so for the MSFS program, maybe I might disappoint some people. It's only full tuition. You don't get the stipend that Kofi got. You don't get the luggage that Abigail got. You actually have to show to the embassy that you can finance your living expenses, and it might be some amount. I don't know. For me, I had to show about $23,000 to the embassy to show that I can finance my first year in the US. But the whole point is when you come in, you don't have to spend all that $23,000 because you can have graduate assistantship. I was working with the financial aid. So I don't know much about the on-campus work that if it has to be related to what you are doing, but what I was doing was related to the course that I was offered. And then I think what another thing you need to pay is your own insurance, right? So you would have to pay for your own insurance, and you also have to pay for your own activity fee. One thing about Georgetown is that for graduate students, you don't stay on campus, so you can find accommodation that is as cheap as possible. If it fits your budget, then you can go with that. So that's basically that. But in the second year, um, so we have the CPT where you have to do internship outside or like during the break, right? But then for the MSFS program, because it's an international relations program and you can work with international organizations, it gives you that opportunity to be able to work outside campus in your second year. So, but then it has to be within 20 hours a week. So for me, I was working with the World Bank in the second year, and through that, I was able to get employment after school. Yeah.
Yeah. Debbie, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I think Albert covered most of it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
our end. So yes, that's the main
it.
difference. And maybe the only addition is that even with the food scholarship, there are two different types. I mean, we could see clearly from Kofi and Abby's own. Abby's own was more comprehensive, where it covered traveling and luggage and all. But Kofi's own, even though it was also full, it didn't come with the travel package. It was just a stipend, right? And for ours, which is full tuition, you have to pay insurance yourself. I mean, it only covers your courses, the cost of your courses, but every other thing else you pay. So yeah, that's mainly the main difference. In terms of what I would encourage, I would just encourage people to give of their best. Take it as one opportunity. What would you do? I mean, just to make sure that you really get this opportunity to get to school. So put in your best. Don't take it as just one thing. I know we wish we will not have to write the GRE, we will not have to write the Ielts, we wish we will not have to write essays, but these are the requirements. This is what the school is asking for. So just make sure that you're meeting these requirements and you're putting in your best in all of that, and you should be good to go. So that'll be all from me. Thanks.
Okay. I think that just to make the question session very easy, I'm going to share the questions among all of us. Just 2 minutes to touch on the questions. So with I'll give this question to Kofi. Kofi, someone is asking that I did HND and I have 3 years working experience and currently doing my top up for a bachelor degree in business administration, which will end in September. What can I do now, or would I have to wait till next year? For Abigail's question, someone is asking that, so generally one can't get a full scholarship without a GRE. For Albert, the question is, the general requirements, what are the general requirements for MBA? Should your first degree be directly linked to the MBA you are seeking scholarships from? From Debbie, someone wants to know that, is it easy? Could you help me converting CWA to GPA? And I think that you can all answer your various questions, but if anyone has a top up on that, they can add to that. So Kofi.
Yeah, I think that with a question regarding the, finishing the first degree, the bachelor's degree, if you are certain that you get your certificates by the end of September, then I would say you can apply. You can apply this year. So I don't mean this year as in the 2021 season, because right now we are in March. Mostly if you want to come in fall, which like we said, the fall semester starts in August and September, there might be some openings, but most of the funding is gone at this time. So what I would say is that your best shot would be next year, because right now there might be some openings, but most likely you will not get funded, because mostly, right, by the first round, most of the funding is gone. There might be some funding in the second round, but the first round, by the end of November, early December, they've taken some of the funding away. So you might be able to apply, because by September, which is when the program starts, you would have your certificate, right? Like an Abigail mentioned, you can just send in your unofficial transcript and everything before you apply. And then once you come into the school, then you can order your school to send the certificate to them. Even though you can apply, because you'll be done in September. But right now, if you are now going to start, which might probably take you another month or two to get it through, it probably will be late, and most of the school's deadline will be passed if you are looking at the fall semester. And I can almost tell you that at this point, the funding is gone. My final words that I would want to say is that when you're ready to apply, like we've already mentioned, start as early as possible, but don't give up on the process. Like we've mentioned, it's not a difficult process, which means that it's not something that cannot be done. It is just cumbersome. It's a lot, right? And sometimes when you reason through it, it doesn't make sense. And those who were not here from the beginning, I asked that, why do I need to write an IELTS test? Why do I need to submit a TOEFL? I have been speaking English from the beginning of my life. And I told her, I said, I'm even talking to you right now in English. Then she was like, yeah, but if it's easy for you, then you shouldn't have a problem writing it. So some of these things don't actually make sense. Why do I need to write a TOEFL exam? Why do I need to write IELTS? But like Debbie also mentioned, that's the name of the game. So I'll just encourage you, don't give up on the process. Start as early as you can. Give yourself ample time to write one essay, take a break, write another essay, write a GRE score, the GRE exam. If you think that you can, if you think that you need to get another score, give yourself some time and take the exam again. But basically, my advice to you is that don't give up on the process. It's very cumbersome, but it's not a difficult process. And yes, if you want to contact us, please, you can hit us up. You can hit me up, or let me speak for myself. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, and then I'll be happy to help and answer questions you have.
Okay, so on the GRE side, so I know typically with the MasterCard scholarship, that's why I said that they have they have partner institutions. So there's McGill, there's University of Cape Town. Every institution has its requirements. Now, MasterCard doesn't probably necessarily require GRE, but for my MBA program, I do. So regardless, I need to do the GRE for my MBA program, even if MasterCard scholarship doesn't require it. And I think that we've also mentioned that sometimes for some of the programs, they don't say it explicitly that you need to write it. But I find that it puts you in a better place, or it gives you a competitive edge. If everybody else is given the same thing and you have GRE, so it puts you in a better position. I applied to Ohio with GRE and IELTS, right? Someone would apply with maybe just GRE, but I find that every other thing would probably give you an extra edge. So if you have the means and now you have the time to write it, just take it, right? And even for UBC, people have gotten in and have written the GRE later. So it's just about you interacting and doing that early. MasterCard in UBC would open in November. I can't speak for other schools, but you need to check and plan ahead of time when you would write your GRE so that you have it available, so that it doesn't become the only reason why you can't put in an application. Yeah, and I think I already gave my final words. If you would want to contact me, yeah, I think LinkedIn would be the best place. Just search Abigail Okyere and just send me a message, connection. But please add a message when you are connecting. Let me know that you listen in on Dear Young Graduate, and I would happily connect with you and answer every question.
Absolutely. Thank you. Albert, then Debbie.
Yeah, so it's surprising that I have to answer the question on MBA requirement. Yeah, so I actually went through like a lot of MBA applications, so that's fine. So definitely then I think one thing that we've been talking about, and I think one thing that everybody is concerned about is the GRE or the GMAT. I think you should have it, and most schools will actually require it for MBA, and you should have it because it would give you that competitive edge. You also need to have your GPA ready, and it has to be. Most schools would say maybe 3.0 and above. Some would say 3.3, but the higher you go, I mean, the better your chances. And you would possibly need IELTS or you need TOEFL to do that. For me, when I was applying to University of California Anderson Business School, I told them point blank that I wasn't going to write the TOEFL, and they had to waive it out for me. So they did. I mean, like I had to meet with the admissions official, speak with them, just talk to them. I mean, I was like, not to sound cocky, but I was like, I mean, I'm the one speaking with you, and you come from a different part of the world, not the US, and I even sound better than you. I told the person point blank. So yeah, I mean, it depends on how, and it depends on your confidence actually, for you to be able to kind of carry your message across. Some schools would definitely want you to write, no matter what. But and then also you look at on the website of some of the schools, they have countries that can waive out of it, and sometimes Ghana is part of it. Some African countries are also part of it. So yeah, you can waive that out, but I must say that some schools will still want you to write that, and then you need to have your essays ready. Some schools will want you to write personal statement, but then at the same time have like essays that are answers to like specific questions that they have on their website. I remember I applied to one program in State University of New York, and they had to let me write an essay about a movie that I watched and why is that related to my career and all that. What did I learn from it and all that. So I guess those are the things. And I think the other part of the question is, do you need to have an undergrad in business administration or something
Yeah,
before
yeah.
applying to the MBA? I would say no. You can have undergraduate degree in various areas and you can still apply to the MBA. I have a friend who is doing the MBA right now and he did economics, mathematics, and statistics at University of Ghana. I also have another one who did English in undergrad and doing the MBA program. So yeah, and
I
you can
have
also,
a lot of nurses in my class. I have a lot of nurses.
wow. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so you can also hit me up. I think I've shared my Lois has shared my email, but preferably I would like LinkedIn, and you also have to write me a message just telling me why. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you met me through this program. If you just need assistance, just
Yeah. Debbie, final. Last but
Okay.
not the least. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the question was how to convert CWA, which I believe is cumulative weighted average, to
Yeah.
GPA.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I don't know how to
It's Google, isn't it?
calculation. But what I do recall when I was working with at Georgetown was with the admissions department is most of the time, I mean, they recognize that applications come from different parts of the world, and they do. Not everyone has the same grading skill, so you can send in your transcripts, and then there was this website we used to go to convert like the various skills because they recognize that we convert it to GPA and we know where your level. So some schools might require that you do it yourself before sending it. But what I knew for that is when it's translated in a different language. So for Georgetown, if your transcript was in French or something, they require that it's translated to English by a certified translator. But if it's a different grading scale, you can just send it, and then the school uses the system to convert it to GPA, and they know exactly where you fall. So in terms of how to calculate the CWA to GPA, I don't know, but I guess you can still send in your transcripts, and then the school might be able to do it for you. That's what I would say. But just to touch on one thing as a final word from me, I know that most people usually have an issue with writing these tests like Ielts, TOEFL, GRE, and mostly it's because of the cost. Because I think my time writing GRE was around $205. I don't know if it's still the same. I know that is mostly like one big challenge, and most of the time people would avoid it. So imagine Kofi having to write the GRE 2 times. That means he spends about $410. I don't know, which is a lot of money in Ghana, but I would say that it's a sacrifice. Nothing comes easy. I know of people who have come in without having to write the GRE, but there have been challenges at the at the visa center, right? I remember my experience when I went to when I went for my visa interview. There was one person in front of me who had a full scholarship, but she was denied. I really don't know why she was denied. She had a full scholarship, but she was denied. But I do recall one of my the man who was teaching me told me that when you get scholarships to schools that are not very credible, that are not like well known. I mean, most of these schools waive on a lot of things, maybe GRE and other things that you will not be asked to provide requirements on. And those schools are not very credible. So there's a likelihood of you being turned down. So you always remember there's one step of yes, you got a scholarship. Secondly, you have to go face the interview process. And how would you prove that yes, you got? I remember when I got mine for Georgetown, I only had about 3 questions. They were like, oh, Georgetown, that's a good school. And trust me, I didn't have any technical questions. It was more of confirmation of what was then right after I got it. So there is the cost side. It's difficult, but just do your best. If you can try to find ways to be able to raise that fund, um, yeah, try it. I would just encourage on that side. But knowing that it's difficult to come by that fund, make sure that you put in all your best to write that exam and pass once and for all, so you don't have to write it more than once. So that's just my advice on that end. So thank you, everyone.